Okay, hey everyone. John Frechette here, CEO of Mora, that's mother of all research assistants. I just want to record a quick video and walk through actually an op-ed opinion article that I put out this morning with William Gunn, who's pictured here. He was an early employee at Mendeley. He's an expert on the reference management space, posts blog posts all the time about reference managers, and now he's working a lot on the topic of reproducibility in research. And again, this is just a very short video to specifically walk through this article on the Scholarly Kitchen, which is an op-ed we've been working on for a while. This is focused on the next era of reference management. What I really want to hone in on is the William interview portion. Some of it is myself writing, and then I get into William's interview. And in that interview, we really talk about gaps in existing literature review tools. However, I will say there's a nice brief history in here as well that goes through history of the 80s and 90s, EndNote, Zatir, and Mendeley in the 2000s, and then a bit of a prediction about what the future of reference management will be. However, if we're to get into, again, the interview specifically, this is a very informal deck, just text and bullet points, but I want to talk through it a bit. So building better AI literature review tools, future reference management, I mentioned, article put out this morning, January 23rd. And the very first line in the article is there anything more boring than reference management? Maybe a personal anecdote here is that, my background is actually in industry and sort of transitioned into, let's say, the scholarly research space. I was really impressed actually and excited to find reference managers like Sotira and Mendeley, very helpful for organizing research. What's more, the industry is really interesting to me. I find it interesting that you don't have as I say in a recent LinkedIn post, you don't have 1,000-person global reference management summit in New York every year. You don't have significant investment going into the space. You don't have significant marketing, advertising, new product development. You've got some of it, but compared with, say, search engines, compared with, writing applications, reference management is really the backbone of scholarly research, and it's not a super widely discussed and sort of widely cited area, and it's also, in my view, underdeveloped in terms of the technologies being used. That's kind of a personal anecdote. Now, according to William, and these are mostly William's takes here, what researchers actually want, if we're thinking about how maybe AI tools are addressing the problems of reference management, of the needs of literature review researchers, what researchers actually want, one is finding all the relevant literature. My personal, again, view on some of these, some of the new AI search engines have done a pretty good job, including the big models, done a pretty good job of being able to come up with precise search results in response to a very precise natural language research question, for example. About at par with, maybe slightly better, sometimes worse than Google Scholar, but a little bit more customization involved. Understand how papers relate. That is what I might call kind of an automated synthesis. There are some good applications there. And then finally, cite correctly without formatting headaches. William talks a lot about the early days of Mendeley and how a big challenge they were always trying to deal with is how do we actually make it so that users don't have to think about things like pulling together good citation metadata. With some of the traditional reference managers, you still have that problem, in my opinion. But with new technologies like APIs that plug into big AI models, like academic paper databases that are super available, we think we can actually really work on that issue over the next 10 or 20 years. But so find literature, understand how papers relate, synthesis, and then citing and referencing. Some areas where AI falls short. At least I talk often about summaries being a little bit, let's just say, overutilized, over-exaggerated in terms of their importance. My view is that that's because they usually cover 5 or 10 papers. William had a slightly different point, which was that it's actually that a lot of different products are summarizing, producing summaries over the same 10 papers. And so everyone's kind of doing a synthesis over the same kind of narrow corpus of articles. And something I talk about a lot is that actually we should use this technology to look more comprehensively at the literature on a particular topic. Do, for instance, something that looks and feels more like a systematic review more often. Sites, press releases, and company blogs. Indeed, I do find a lot of new AI search engines. What William is referring to here is the deep research tools. Even if you give it some instructions, a ChatGPT deep research to limit its use to academic papers, you still get a lot of things like news articles. The new search engines, I would say you get a ton of working papers, and in some cases, unfortunately, you get retracted papers as well. Hallucinating on citations is still a problem. I know firsthand from seeing lots of my students who literally just include fake citations in their paper. And so that is still an issue. And then finally, maybe most important, particularly if you're just relying on the summary of an AI research tool, no transparency or reproducibility. You could get a different set of search results, a different synthesis over the same research question. It's very hard to replicate. So what actually works in terms of what are some durable use cases of using AI? Yes, in the context of reference management specifically, but in literature reviews generally. Structured extraction, without a doubt. So being able to, for example, either from title abstract or full text articles, um, understand study design and catalog it. And then maybe if you're working with a large corpus of papers and you're doing screening, filtering for a particular study design, having include, exclude criteria matched against that study design, data methods, key results, population, etc. All of these things, structured extraction works really well for screening in particular. Enriched metadata is a topic at Mora we talk about often, and that's just being able to really have great citation, screening, metadata for all your entire library, regardless of where papers are coming from. A big use case, let's say value proposition of using AI for managing research libraries is that you are less dependent on publishers having great metadata, aggregators, search engines having great metadata. And so we can actually demonstrate some areas where, for instance, users might add a paper. Not only does that paper not have DOIs, but sometimes, again, it does not have even an abstract on it, whatever site it's hosted on. We can actually go and pull together an abstract based on the contents of the article. So enrich metadata and getting your metadata great. Primary sources with transparent process, without a doubt. So that is, again, having more of a reproducible process for pulling together your library and then kind of screening it. And then team collaboration, whether you're talking about AI or just other advanced technologies like APIs and very available plugins for software developers to give users the ability to add collaborators. The point is team collaboration, everything from logging which user added which paper in a library to sharing annotations and comments with each other to assign formal screening tasks to multiple dual independent reviewers and then getting some conflict resolution logic put together. All of those things are, what we feel will drive the future of reference management and what these tools should really be working on. And the final slide, I just thought this is a great quote. I put it out on LinkedIn this morning. William had said, more or less, if it could ship as a ChatGPT feature next month, it's just not enough. And indeed, I think you do have a lot of products that, especially early on, just effectively built ChatGPT engines, so question and answer engines that were sort of organized around dedicated inventories of academic papers, i.e., you take ChatGPT, you more or less rebuild it, and then you limit its outputs to academic papers, and then you make those sources part of a running list. That's the search and summarization engine. But very quickly, I think as an industry, we're finding out those aren't the durable use cases that matter for a company, and those are really not the areas that add the most value for researchers. I like to describe it as you should really use these technologies to do the hard stuff. The hard stuff that's tedious, that's manual. Yes, you can't spin it up in a day, but that's the technology we should be focused on. And finally, for what it's worth, spoiler alert, that's what we're doing at Mora. We're trying to tackle the hard stuff, reference management, doing things like integrating Crossref and OpenAlex to go find DOIs and really triple confirm that you've got the right metadata. Being able to enable collaborations, real workflows with industrial screening processes, establishing include exclude criteria. These are not kind of just flashy LLM use cases you can spin up again in a couple days. Take some time to build these things, but once you've got the infrastructure, we feel it scales. It's very beneficial and valuable for our customers. So really appreciate everyone's time. I encourage you to head over to Scholarly Kitchen. You'll find the guest post there. You can search my name or William's name, but please let me know any questions, john@mora.io. Thank you.